Good evening. God bless you. I just want to welcome you on tonight to the Addiction Show. And I just want to say thank you all for being patient with us as we collaborate on our efforts to make this here show more interesting and more stimulating. And what we were doing was we want to be able to bring other guests in, as Pastor Paris Moorman had informed you on last week. But I'm glad and I'm here and we're refreshed. We had some personal issues that was going on with my family. And I want to first of all thank you all for the prayers of my sister Deidre, just to give you some updates. She out of ICU. She's breathing on her own, and they are talking about discussions of releasing her real soon. So I just want to thank you all for your prayers. And I just want to thank you and tell you that I love you and I really appreciate you. Moving on to the this topic on tonight. The topic on tonight is talking about an addiction. And in addiction, in the program, there's a 12-step program. And in the 12 steps, they have step 12. 12 steps states that having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to help the alcoholic and to practice these. We carry the message to the alcoholic and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. And in saying that, I was studying the book of Genesis, and I was going over to Genesis 4, and I was reading the story about Cain and Abel. And Cain, of course, you know the story that he slew Abel. And what was so interesting is that Abel's blood cried out from the ground to God. And God heard the voice, and he approached Cain, and he asked him, he said, where is thy brother? And Cain totally denied and said, look, I don't know. He said, he came back and he said, am I my brother's keeper? And he was saying that sarcastically, as he began to try to justify something, or try to avoid talking to God, or just straight out lying to him. And what was important is that from that scripture, people have this question that derived from that scripture, is that, am I my brother's keeper? Now, in studying that, I had spoke on this morning at a group about the importance of helping those who are really in need of help. And what I find is that so many of us is easy to be a part of a social group that is stable. That's the easy part. Our social network is stable. But what God requires us to do is to come outside of our comfort zones and to help those who are not able to help themselves. Early on in recovery, things have changed and people have a different understanding. But early on in recovery, when I came in, they did what they call a 12-step call. And in a 12-step call, what would happen is that they had a phone in the closet of the meeting, where we're at the coat closet at the meeting where we were attend. And when we attend this meeting, in the middle of the meeting, if the phone would ring, someone would answer the phone. And when someone answered the phone, there was another alcoholic, or there was somebody from the downtown AA office, and what they would do was call and say, we have someone that's have identified themselves in need of help in your area. And the question was not would you go and outreach? It was basically like, here's the address, here is the number, thank you. And what we do, a few of us would go. If it was a female, we make sure we bring a female, and always bring 2 or more people. And we don't want to bring too many to intimidate them. And what we did was we would get together, we would ride, we would go over to the person's house or wherever it is they may be. If they somewhere in a tavern, we would go in there. If there was somewhere on the street corner, we would go there. And we would talk to this person and we would introduce that person to the principles of the spiritual principle that the program have. And as a result of introducing these people, these individuals with these principles, then we would show them how this program worked. Same thing with the ministry. And so what happens a lot of time is that this here step has a principle of servitude, where we begin to use the information that we have acquired as a result of practicing these principles, working these steps, talking with sponsorship, and we will apply what we know as we help to other people. Now, this is the important part here is that now, when you help another person that's in need of help, you're taking out a premium on your own sobriety. And so what it is like, it's a win-win situation. When you help an individual, that means that you are in a position, you are in a good position, right? So that means that you have already acquired some steps, you have already have some principles, and you have already had the knowledge and the skills that is required to sustain your sobriety and to maintain a drug-free lifestyle. And what happens at that point is that then at that point, in order for us to keep that, we have to go out and share that information to someone else. And that's the beauty of the program, is that with that servitude, it's showing us we're doing the things that God had already ordained us to do. And the good part about coming through a 12-step program is that we have fell off the path of righteousness. And this program had guided us back on the path of righteousness. And then in that, during the journey of this path, we find ourselves in a position to help somebody else that have went through the same thing we went through. Now, it's important for us to understand something, that sometimes medicine is not the solution. Sometimes psychiatrists and psychologists is not the solution. Sometimes a treatment or some of the other methods is not the solution. Sometimes the solution is just simply an individual that have the same experiences and was in the same shoes, walked the same shoes that this recovering addict or this current addict or this practicing addict or alcoholic is walking. And what happens is that they find something in common that can connect these two individuals. And then something spiritual occurs that no one else could have done it, but the person who have already been through this here experience, this person that already been through their addiction, is able to help somebody else. Now, saying that, that's the easy part of this servitude part. Now, the challenging part is the part where they talk about as we practice these principles in all our affairs. What are these principles? We have the principles of servitude, we have the principle of brotherly love, we have the principle of faith, courage, and we have a 12 principles. And these principles is what we obtain as a result of working each step, because in each step there is a principle. And there's also in each step there is a discipline. But we're going to talk about that on our next show, on next Monday. Talk about the principles and the disciplines. And what happens is that when we find that we have these principles and we want to apply them in all of our affairs. I heard an individual state that if you can't apply these principles in all your affairs, you need to get rid of the affairs that you have, because the spiritual principles will keep you and prevent you from getting back into some of the situations that led you down this path of destruction in the beginning. And so we have to practice these principles. What do we practice? We practice honesty, we practice humility, we practice brotherly love, we practice faith, we practice servitude. We practice these everywhere we go. Now, it's one thing that we do, and it's important for us to understand. And the reason why it's important for us to take a holistic approach to this here situation as it pertains to practicing these principles in all our affairs. The reason why we do that is because sometimes we would get so gun-ho within to the program that our whole life is consumed within this program. And I see so many of my friends and colleagues and my constituents make this grave mistake that they stick to that program, or they stick to this church, or they stick to whatever method that used them to get their life back on track, and they go nowhere else. But the truth of the matter is this, is that these spiritual principles is designed to help you live a holistic life. Uh, my whole life is not consistent on AA or NA or any other, but those programs gave me a whole life. And when I have this whole life, I'm able to go out and reach other brothers and sisters that are still suffering, and able to go out in different areas that's in my life, because this program prepared me to go and to do anything, be it education, or go back to school, go to church, go to the 12-step program, even talking and discussing openly, honestly, and respectfully about other people's differences, their religious belief, their sexual orientation, their economic differences, and it don't make me feel inferior or superior. I just feel like an average person. It brings me right-sided. And I'm so grateful to be able to have this opportunity, because it's important for me to give back what was given to me. When I came around, people made it their business to attend to anybody that was new. Something was going on, they could be talking about another step or tradition or something, and as soon as somebody brand new come in, they automatically change whatever it is that they were doing and start talking about the most important step of all of them. It's step one. And so we have to understand how important it is for us to do this servitude, and the paradox behind it is that, and it lines right up with Scripture. It's lined right up with Scripture. And the Scriptures that tells us it is better to give than receive. And see, I really didn't understand the depths of that Scripture until I started to really break down and unpack some of these spiritual principles, and how important it is to give of yourself, because the more I give of myself in this program, in this church, in my life, in my calling, my ministry, or whatever it is that God had me to do, the more God gives me to give. And I used to hear the old folks talk about it all the time, is that you can't outgive God. You cannot outgive God, and that also, even in these harsh and economic times, that also applies to your tithes and offering. You can't outgive God, so it's important for us to, again, practice all these principles, all these spiritual principles in all of my affairs. And it's important for me to do that, because not only am I a member, but I'm also a father, I'm a grandfather, I'm an uncle, I'm a brother, and I'm a whole lot of things. Friends, to people, co-workers, constituents. I have a lot of different relationships that I have. I'm a teacher and an educator, and I'm also, it's just so much that I've been blessed to be in a position to do. And so it's important for us to basically to get a real understanding of how important it is just to serve people, to be able to give what was freely given to us, to begin to share some of the knowledge and share the wealth. And I just want to thank you for your time. God bless you, and be good to yourself.